Alright guys, TacticalRab again today. Hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. It appears that OpTic has caught wind of Scump's plans for his kickoff tournament team that he's going to be putting together with Pred, Shotzzy and JurNii. But Karma wants onto the team instead. He wants JurNii dropped from the roster. He wants Karma to be put onto the roster. Would Scump do his friend dirty like this and change the roster despite having agreed it? But would it actually potentially give the roster a better chance of winning some of those kickoff tournaments? Very much interested to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I greatly appreciate it. First of all, wanted to mention an update from aBeZy on kind of just like the World Championship production level. We saw a lot of talk about this yesterday after the Valorant World Championship Grand Finals. Clay was like, damn, they pulled that off, we pulled this off, especially looking back at, for example, Major 4, when it wasn't in New York, it was in Columbus, and the guys were standing around there, Maven did the intro. It was a bit of a disaster. Now look, that wasn't our World Championship, but our World Championship didn't quite look like this. And this is just a screenshot of the venue at the Kia Forum. They'd done a pretty stellar job putting this together. The intros, the videos, the hype around it was absolutely fantastic. Now look, let's be honest, they can fund a lot of this by their skin sales. They made 20 million or something easily through the Valorant Championship bundle, of which half the money, probably out of the 40 million, I don't exactly know what they sold, but they sold many millions. A lot of that goes to Riot, a lot of that goes to the teams. That would be nice to have in Call of Duty as well, but you know, apparently not. For whatever reason, crowdfunding isn't an option in COD, despite it being pretty obvious. Now aBeZy, who of course worked for MLG, then Esports Engine, knows quite a bit about how to reduce stuff like this, actually said, the Valorant esports stage and production was the best I've ever seen. I don't think it's close. I could say I'd love to have the budget, but just because you have the recipe doesn't mean you can cook the meal, he says. So, you know, saying that it's very impressive what they managed to pull off here. And he also gives an insight into what it would cost to pull this off. He reckons this is something between a $35 and a $70 million show. He says, okay, it's a wide range, depends on activities, marketing, you know, game day activities, sponsor activations, all this type of stuff. And obviously it was in LA as well at the Forum. So, you know, unlikely to be a cheap venue to host it. Riot doesn't mess around. I've never had more than $2 million budget for a show. I thought this is interesting to look at because he ran a lot of the Call of Duty events with MLG and Esports Engine for years. And, you know, so apparently none of those events ever went over $2 million budgets. But even with their budget, it's not exactly easy to pull off. And, you know, he goes on to talk about a couple of other things. So pretty interesting just to think about, right? Because this was the event that I think spectacle-wise was, there was a few events really in this season, but this is the 2017 World Championship. This was held in Orlando, Florida, actually. So I guess the rate to hire the venue and this type of stuff wouldn't have been as great as in LA, and some of the other costs. I think like when the venue people have to work overtime hours, especially out in California, it costs a lot of money. So, you know, those are some of the expenses. But apparently this was like, I mean, let's say this was the most expensive event they ever put on. You guys remember the main stage for this? They had two different stages. They had, the main stage was on the main stage, and then they had further up another stage. So there was like two games happening on main at the same time. It was pretty wild, to be honest. But yeah, this of course was the 2017 World Championship that OpTic ended up winning. But it feels like we kind of might need aBeZy to return a little bit, because the last few years it's fallen off a little bit. He's no longer involved in Esports Engine. After the relationship broke down there with Esports Engine, it appears he's got some sort of a non-compete clause until he can start up his next company, you'd imagine, to do esports event production. And we might need that sooner rather than later, because if Microsoft come in and decide, you know what, CDL, we've had enough of you, we want to take it back to an open circuit format we used to have, they probably will, you know, bring in a third party to produce that. And aDeZy would be the perfect guy, but it might not be happening at the moment. Depends how quickly Microsoft, if they do come in, which they probably will, make up a decision on that. So definitely enjoyed your thoughts on that in the comments below. Let's move on though. Of course, Miami Heretics, we saw the confirmation the other day. Methodz, this is the other Methodz, the EU Methodz, the you know, the better Methodz, some would say. But of course, people are just joking at Xin at that point, because, you know, Xin sometimes would be a bit of an easy target, and clearly Karma thinks the same thing, because, well, we'll get back to that in a second. So Methodz is going to be back in the league, not JurNii, of course, despite the fact that he might want to come back and compete at some point, and intends to do challenges at the start of the new season to keep his eye in, I suppose, which is hopefully going to be exciting to watch. And if the game's good, who knows? Methodz is going to be coaching this Methodz, which is going to have to be another clarification that I used to have to make back in 2019 when I first started making these videos. But it's been a little while since I've had to, you know, make that distinction clear. So he's going to be coaching the Miami Heretics for the new season. Their team, I think, can be better than people maybe expected to be, but it's still, I would say, not like the best selection of Spanish players theoretically. But, you know, hopefully they can mix it up for the World Championship, because Heretics were a top 6, top 8 team back in Black Ops 4, surprisingly so to many. And they, like JurNii especially, was, I remember like there was a hot take that Pac-Man made that he was like a top 5 player in the game. Maybe it was a nameless take, I kind of forget. But yeah, he was really pretty good at a time. So we'll see what happens for the new season. There was also this from the COD League. Who do you think is the greatest SMG player in COD Esports history? Like, do they need their Elon Musk money from extra, like, Twitter.com, you know what I mean? Like, is this why? Because there's only one answer, you know? Unless you've literally only watched COD for the last couple of seasons, you might say aBeZy, but, you know, there's literally no argument here, right? And obviously, I mean, maybe they're just farming the reply. It's fair play. But speaking of Scump, of course, we've got to mention his team that he's coming out with for as soon as the game launches, the kickoff tournaments begin. Usually, it's search and destroy for some time, but last year, search and destroy, it hasn't really been that good in the last couple of games, to be honest, and teams very swiftly moved into doing hardpoint tournaments, respawn tournaments in general. But for the kickoff events, usually the way they work, and this is the way they'll work likely this year again, 2 CDL pros, 2 content creators. Now, these content creators are pretty much any pro player that's just retired. Like, if you've retired and you're no longer a CDL pro, you're now a content creator. Crimsix, Scump, Karma, even Formal, the Dynasty team, could, well, all be content creators if they wanted for the new season, despite the fact that, you know, if they were in the league, they'd still be some of their very best. So I'll just share, if you guys didn't see the other day's video, Scump's, you know, when he revealed his team, that they've already decided for the new game, and then Karma has a bit of a reaction.
That's fine.
But like for the kickoffs, it's already like me, Pred, Shotzzy, and Zen. We already like made our team.
Who?
Me, Zinny, Pred, and Shotzzy.
For what?
For the like kickoffs, like the creator kickoffs. Yeah, we're creators now.
That's so dumb, dude. That's so dumb.
So we're literally just going to have a pro team.
So Karma came across this and says, kickoffs with Zin. Are you trying to start the watch party early, my guys? I thought this is pretty funny stuff. And like, again, Zin can be a bit of an easy target. Even Karma's taken advantage of it here and saying like, you know, why is Zin coming along for the ride? Put me in coach instead. Of course, Karma is actually the coach now for the OpTic team. And obviously joking around it. Because this is the thing, right? Scump, I think even Zinni has said that he wants to play challenges with maybe, I don't know, Bose, Octane, whoever they can get, and just kind of play the first couple of Challengers Cups just for fun, and then when the season begins for the CDL side, which the CDL begins after the Challengers Cups pretty much always, and certainly that's going to be the case this year, then Zinni will go do the watch parties again and probably no longer continue with the Challenger stuff. That, you'd imagine, would be the plan. But of course, for the kickoff tourneys, and Scump has said that he's not really going to do the Challenger stuff. He might, and he said that it's, you know, if he enjoys it, it's definitely not impossible that he might, but probably he won't, and he'll prefer to watch party, Zinni and co, OpTic Nation, do that instead. And of course, as and when Scump's team with Pred, Shotzzy, and Zinni, as it is at the moment, gets knocked out of these early kickoff tourneys, then Scump will turn on the watch party and, you know, watch the teams that are still in the tourney. So Karma's like, oh, you're obviously looking to do those watch parties early because you're going to get knocked out round one type thing. So Karma's like, hey, put me in instead. And obviously part of this is tongue-in-cheek, but I'm sure part of Karma actually, you know, wants to be on that team, because think about it, right? You've got Scump, you've got Pred, you've got Shotzzy. Who wouldn't want to be the fourth on that team, especially when, historically, and Zinni's pretty good at the start of games as well, but Karma historically is just unbelievably good at any game as soon as he picks it up. Doesn't even matter if it's not COD. Like, anything that Karma plays for the first, like, you know, couple of weeks, Karma just picks up games so quickly. It is a real talent that COD pros have, just because they have to, right, to adapt to games very quickly over years. But Karma, even, I remember at the start of Black Ops Cold War, you guys probably remember, Karma just retired, and people like, oh, this guy was so washed last year. He comes into Black Ops Cold War and was probably like the best player in the world in the kickoff tournaments that year. Like, it was actually insane. Karma was just carrying every team with the sniper, especially. I remember some clips on Miami, like, he was unbelievable. And people were like, why isn't Karma still competing? And then Holly, his wife, was like, oh, well, he kind of wants to, but doesn't look like that's going to happen anymore. But he still is very keen to play these kickoff tournaments. And when there's like one big OpTic team, which is, you know, we don't know what's going to happen with Kenny and Dashy. Like, they'll have their own team probably, and Karma might, or maybe not, right? But who knows what they're going to do, because Pred and Shotzzy, that's going to be the duo with Scump, and then Zinni coming along as well. So Karma's like, hey, kick Zin out of here, put me onto this team, because, you know, I'm going to give us a better chance, and I imagine Karma probably wants to play with these guys. So Scump's like, oh, poor Zin. So, you know, obviously know that he's getting roasted here. Now, Scump's got a couple of months now to decide whether he takes Karma Karma up on this offer. It is actually Zin, unlucky man. Like, you know, you're going to have to go and team with the other guys or, you know, find some other roster. I'm bringing Karma into the fray. Because, look, would it give them, with Karma, would it give them a better chance to win? There's an argument that it would. It's marginal. I mean, look, it's early creator kickoff tournaments. It doesn't really matter that much at the end of the day anyway. So, and I don't think Scump will do his boy dirty like this after having agreed to play with Zinni to now say, actually, nah, mate, we're bringing in the 3-time. But, you know, if he did, I wouldn't necessarily blame him. Karma does say in the replies, they kind of imply that, like, you know, like, I'm just coming for those Elon Musk impressions. At least a $25 drink, let me cook. So, you know, I'm sure part of this is tongue-in-cheek, but nonetheless, Zinni getting a little bit disrespected here, and still, I don't think Karma is necessarily saying this for no good reason. I think there's quite likely that he actually wouldn't mind getting put in that team if the chance was to arise, and as I've said historically, you know, Karma's always really good at the start of games, and Crimsix is probably going to be a creator in this season's kickoffs as well, because that's how things at this point always seem to go, and of course, Karma right up there with one of the best ever. We've talked about Karma a fair bit over the last few days because of the drama really between Kalista and giving his thoughts on the top 5 players ever. Clay believing that he's even above Scump and certainly above Karma. Karma, I imagine, feels the opposite because when he was, you know, when some people were saying, oh, he shouldn't be on the Mount Rushmore, Karma was having some thoughts on that. And a lot of you guys in the comments were saying, look, what Karma did on Freako Impact right at the start of his career was just so impressive, even without all the things that follows, that he definitely deserves to be considered in this vein. And, you know, even the likes of Krim and, you know, Clayster, they only won the world, well, only, right? But, you know, they only won the world championship on their second and third attempts. Karma won it at his first attempt, which few other players have ever done, right? That original Freako Impact team, Attach in Advanced Warfare, Simp on United, and then Shotzzy and Illy, of course, on Dallas Empire. But yeah, only 8 players that have ever won champs on their first attempts. Second, you'll find Aches, Krim, Teep, then Slasher, Silly, actually, and then aBeZy. And then third, you find a few other names. There's also 8 here in this category as well. So pretty cool stuff, to be fair. But also wanted to mention, right, Karma will, we still believe, be the coach of OpTic Texas going forward. There was a rumor right after the off-season, or kind of before the off-season began, that Karma wasn't going to stick around. He wanted to, yeah, he doesn't want to do it anymore. But then he said that that's BS, and this is actually not true at all. So I think there's a good chance that Karma will stay as the OpTic coach. It makes sense, and I think that he'll have a lot to teach these guys. And therefore, you got to think as well that Karma, you know, it's not like he's going to lack the chemistry with Shotzzy and Pred, but still, Karma hasn't really played with Pred before or worked with Pred before, let's say, after the most recent season. So maybe there's additional benefits to Scump saying, you know what, Karma, like, yeah, come in here, let's play with Pred and Shotzzy and Karma and everything, and maybe that's beneficial for both sides. So if Karma really wants to make this happen, then maybe he will try and find a way, but very much intrigued to hear your perspective on all this stuff in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.